Hey, my name is Matt, and I'm recording this video on behalf of my friends at the Colorado Fairing Company. I am a very happy customer. I purchased my first fairing from them back in late 2019. It was made out of a different material than the one that I have on now. It was cut a little bit different. I was one of the first ones that they were trying this particular design with, and so I've been super happy with it since then. But what I want to tell you a little bit about is why I bought it, kind of what it's going to do for you. But I think in order to maybe convince you a little bit better, I'll tell you a little bit about what I do for a living and why that might actually be relevant here. I'm the VP of Sustainability for a publicly traded trucking company. The company I work for has about 3,000 Class 8 big rig trucks. We drove about 300 million miles last year. I know a lot about aerodynamics. I've spent time on test tracks. I've spent time in wind tunnels. I have tried every product that you can imagine. Some worked really well and some of them didn't. A fairing on the top of a vehicle like this one behind me is one of the most cost-effective, best investments that you'll make. It'll cut down on wind noise, it'll help your MPG, and aesthetically, I think it helps it look a little bit better, which, to be honest, is one of the big reasons why we do this, right? So I want to tell you a little bit about the installation, some tips and tricks. There are things that I can share with you may or may not be relevant to your particular install because there's so many different vehicles out there that you could potentially install this on. This just happens to be a Sprinter van with a really flexible rack that's got a lot of mounting points to it. So my install was actually relatively straightforward. When you get the fairing, it'll come with obviously the fairing itself. It'll come with several brackets like this, which are made out of high strength steel. And you will get several of these UV resistant rubber straps, which will help you attach the bracket to the crossbar, whatever it is you have on top of the vehicle. So in just a second, we're going to crawl up on top. The last thing I want to tell you before we kind of cut to the next spot is that if you have questioned whether or not you have it in your wheelhouse, if you have the skills in order to install something, I can tell you that it's not easy, but it's also not hard at all. I think if you have a screwdriver, a drill, and just a little bit of patience, you can figure out how to do this on your own. It's not rocket science. You should not be afraid. You should not be afraid of a project like this. A couple things I would tell you to do is if you're going to have to drill any holes in your rack or anything that you're going to mount it to, make sure to put a piece of cardboard underneath it to catch the metal shavings, because those metal shavings, if they fall hot on top of your car, they can start to mess with the paint, the clear coat, and start to rust. I would use torque wrenches. I would not use power tools. I would do all this by hand. It would be the only other piece of advice that I would give you. So without further ado, let's crawl up on top of the van and I'll show you a little bit more about my installation. Okay, so for the last hour, I have already installed this. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through all the different things that I did. The first thing I want to point out is that I already have a rack on my vehicle that's made out of aluminum, so it's really easy to have attachment points. I think most of you will probably be using this crossbar in order to attach the brackets to with the rubber strap. They're nice and long, so plenty of room. You'll probably have to push this pretty far forward in order to get it to work, but that's one of the reasons why they designed the mounts like they did. As you can see, I've got kind of a nice curve, just a gentle curve across the top of the van. And so what I had to do in order to get the fairing to match the curve was to push the brackets out just a little bit further in the middle and kind of pull them back a little bit more on the side. And that allowed the fairing to kind of match the shape of the van, because really what you want to make sure is there's no open gaps so that there's air coming up underneath it, which starts to slowly affect your fuel economy over time. So again, you can see here, I've just got the mounting points here. There's no reason to have two bolts here. It's just, I just happen to have some extra ones, so I put them on there. And obviously measure twice, cut once. So I drilled the hole here without measuring correctly. You can see I did it here as well. So again, measure twice, drill or cut once. And that's pretty much it. I may shoot one more video from the side so you can see a little bit about what it looks like, but otherwise it's a nice clean install. My road noise is almost nothing. I picked up about a mile per gallon. I'm about to take a long road trip. I'm really interested to see how much better I'm going to do with this new fairing. It's a little bit wider than the old one, and it comes up a little bit taller which means I've got a little bit better wind coverage over the top of this. So I will go shoot one last video of the side, and hopefully that's all you need to get started. Okay, this is the last part of the video. This just shows you a little bit more about how you can slide the fairing up and down along the bracket. They designed it so that you have plenty of room to lower or raise it depending on the particular configuration of your vehicle. But as you can see through there, I've got 4 of them installed. It's nice and sturdy. Got the rubber gasket right here. There's no gaps. One thing I'm gonna have to do is get these leaves out from underneath here. But that's it. Pretty simple. It took me about an hour and a half to do it. Most of that was measuring and sort of just standing, looking at it, figuring out the best way to do it. Once I actually picked up the first tool, it pretty much got everything done in about maybe 45 minutes. But again, depending on your particular vehicle, it might be a little bit different. Again, Colorado Fairing Company, if you're on the edge, if you're on the fence, some of the best money you'll spend on your build. Good luck.